From community college to becoming one of the fastest players the NFL has ever seen, this is the unbelievable story of Tyreek Hill, the player every scout overlooked, but no defense can ignore now. Tyreek's story starts in the small town of Pearson, Georgia. The town had a population of barely over 2,000, a blink and you miss it kind of place. But hidden within this quiet town was a kid with speed that could make the Flash jealous. Born to teenage parents, Derek Shaw and Anisha Sanchez, Tyreek's life was anything but easy from the start. But it wasn't Derek or Anisha who raised him. Instead, it was his grandparents, Herman and Virginia Hill, who stepped in to give him the structure he needed. Growing up, Tyreek wasn't handed anything. No silver spoons, no fancy football camps, just a whole lot of raw talent. His grandmother, Virginia, was especially strict, the type who didn't tolerate excuses. She made sure Tyreek knew the value of hard work, whether that meant chores around the house or pushing himself on the field. Before Tyreek ever touched a football, he discovered his superpower, speed, like world-class, make-your-jaw-drop speed. In high school, Tyreek was a track star before he was a football phenom. We're talking about a kid who could run the 100 meters in 10.19 seconds. That's not just fast, that's Olympic-level fast. At Coffee High School, he was burning up the track, winning state titles, and breaking records like it was no big deal. But despite all that speed, Tyreek wasn't heavily recruited for football. Why? Well, scouts thought he was too small. At 5 feet 8 inches, he didn't fit the traditional mold of a wide receiver. NFL teams love big physical guys who can outmuscle defenders. Tyreek was more like a Ferrari in a world obsessed with monster trucks. The young boy went to Garden City Community College in Kansas. Yep, that's right. Not Alabama, not Ohio State, not even a Division I school. Just a small community college in the middle of nowhere. But Tyreek didn't let that stop him. He lit up the field, showcasing not just his speed, but his ability to make defenders look foolish. He ran track and became the star of the Garden City Broncbusters football team. Coaches used him everywhere. Wide receiver, running back, kick returner, even quarterback in direct snap plays. If there was a way to get the ball in Tyreek's hands, they found it. By his sophomore year, he had racked up 659 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns, alongside 67 receptions for 532 yards and another 6 touchdowns. But just as importantly, he had done the one thing keeping him from the next level. He raised his GPA enough to finally qualify for a Division I scholarship. The offers came flying in. Alabama, Oklahoma, Florida State, Texas. Every powerhouse program wanted the junior college phenom. But Tyreek chose Oklahoma State, ready to prove himself on the biggest stage. And just like always, he made an instant impact. In his first season with the Cowboys, he became one of the most versatile weapons in college football. He hauled in 31 receptions for 381 yards, added 534 rushing yards at 5.2 yards per carry, and dominated on special teams with 740 kick return yards and 2 touchdowns, plus another 256 punt return yards with a touchdown. His total all-purpose yards stood around 1,811, 11th in the entire nation. His combined return yards alone ranked 2nd in the country. So of course, the Big 12 took notice, naming him the conference's Offensive Newcomer of the Year. On the track, he was even more special, shattering multiple OSU school records like it was nothing. Not only that, but he also became the first Cowboy ever to earn indoor All-American honors. That's the kind of thing that gets your name in bold letters in the record books. Everything seemed to be falling into place perfectly for him, but that's when disaster struck. In December 2014, Tyreek's life took a hard hit. Oklahoma State dismissed him from both the football and track teams after he was arrested and pled guilty to domestic violence charges. Just like that, his college career hit a wall. With a criminal record now attached to his name, Tyreek became a no-go for every Division I school. Coaches weren't answering his calls, and scholarship offers disappeared overnight. For almost a year, he faced the harsh reality that his football dreams might be over before they really started. Just when it seemed like the door had slammed shut, Tyreek got a call that would change everything. It was Brett Gilliland, the head coach at the University of West Alabama. Funny enough, Tyreek had actually reached out to West Alabama before, but Gilliland had turned him down after reading the police report. But Coach Gilliland didn't stop there. He decided to dig a little deeper, reaching out to Tyreek's former coaches and mentors. After hearing their perspective, Gilliland had a change of heart. He picked up the phone and made a call that Tyreek would never forget. Coach called me and he's like, "Reek, you ready to play some football?" Tyreek recalled. At first, Hill wasn't in the mood to talk. He'd been rejected so many times he figured this was just another letdown. But then Coach said, "Reek, I got the transcript," which translates to, "You're in." Tyreek knew this was his shot, and he wasn't going to waste it. In just 11 games at West Alabama, he racked up 1,143 all-purpose yards and 8 touchdowns. Whether he was running the ball, catching passes, or returning kicks, he was making plays, just like he always had. Despite putting up solid numbers, Tyreek's past still cast a long shadow. NFL teams weren't just looking at his stats, they were looking at his record. Most teams considered him undraftable. Major analysts predicted he'd go undrafted, and to make matters worse, he didn't even get an invite to the NFL Combine. That's basically the old tilt-around. He knew it was his moment. No hype, no guarantees, just one shot to prove he belonged. And Tyreek was ready to put on a show. He ran a jaw-dropping 4.29 second 40-yard dash, showing everyone just how fast he truly was. His head coach was so confident that over 20 NFL teams would be interested in him. But when draft day came, things weren't looking quite as rosy. As the rounds went by, it seemed like Tyreek's past had left him undraftable, and the analysts were beginning to look right. Tyreek was still on the board as the draft wore on. But then, with the 165th pick in the 5th round, the Kansas City Chiefs made their move and selected Tyreek Hill. At the time, many fans were unsure about the pick due to Tyreek's troubled past, but it didn't take long for him to prove them wrong. A second chance with the Chiefs' head coach Andy Reid had a history of giving second chances to players with troubled pasts. He had taken a chance on players like Travis Kelce in 2013 and Michael Vick earlier in his career, and now he was doing the same with Tyreek Hill. Coach Reid believed Tyreek was on the path to redemption and had what it took to be a better man, so he put his faith in him. Little did Reid, or anyone, know, but the Chiefs had just drafted one of the best wide receivers in NFL history. Tyreek's NFL career started as a return man, given that he was lower on the receiver depth chart. But from the very first game, it was clear this guy was something special. His speed was game-changing, and it didn't take long for the league to notice. In just his second week, Tyreek took a kickoff to the house, setting a record with a speed of 23.24 miles per hour, making him the fastest man in the league at the time. That was when his self-proclaimed nickname, Cheetah, really stuck. Even without a ton of playing time as a receiver, his speed was enough to affect the game in major ways. A historic rookie season 1 of his standout performances came in the Chiefs' Week 12 overtime win against the Broncos. Tyreek scored a touchdown in every way possible, rushing, receiving, and on a kick return. With that, he became the first player since 1965 to score all 3 ways in a single game. By the end of his rookie season, Tyreek had racked up 61 receptions for 593 yards and 6 touchdowns. On top of that, he was the best return man in the league, earning a spot in the Pro Bowl and a first-team All-Pro selection. It was an incredible start for a 5th-round pick with almost no room for error. In the offseason following his rookie year, the Chiefs made another bold move. While they had Tyreek Hill and quarterback Alex Smith on the roster, they decided to trade up in the 2017 draft for a new quarterback. That quarterback was none other than Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, the guy we all know today as one of the NFL's best, but that's a whole different story for later. Going into his second season, Tyreek was determined to show he was more than just a speedster. Everyone knew he was fast, but could he be more than just a gadget player? Well, his first game of the 2017 season would answer that question in a big way. Breaking out in 2017. Tyreek Hill's second season was all about proving he wasn't just fast. He was a legitimate NFL receiver. In his first game of the 2017 season, he caught a career-high 133 receiving yards and a touchdown against the Patriots. It didn't stop there, though. Throughout the year, he continued to solidify his position as the Chiefs' #1 receiver, finishing the season with 1,183 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns. On top of that, Tyreek had another outstanding year as a punt returner, earning his second consecutive Pro Bowl selection as a return specialist. However, despite Tyreek's rise as a key player, the Chiefs were once again eliminated from the playoffs in their first game. Marking the second year in a row, they didn't make it past the opening round. It was clear the team needed a change. While Alex Smith was a solid quarterback, he couldn't quite get the Chiefs over the playoff hump. So the Chiefs made a bold move and turned to Patrick Mahomes as their new starting quarterback for the 2018 season. And, as we all know, that move transformed the Chiefs' offense into one of the most electrifying in the league. Tyreek Hill went from being a good receiver to one of the best in the league. In the very first game of the season, Hill made his presence felt immediately. He returned a punt for a 91-yard touchdown, putting his speed on full display for everyone to see. Later in the same game, he caught Mahomes' first passing touchdown of the year and finished the game with 169 receiving yards and 3 total touchdowns. This was just the beginning of something incredible for Hill and the Chiefs. Mahomes' arm strength and ability to extend plays complemented Tyreek's speed perfectly. Together, they became an unstoppable force. Opposing defenses had no idea how to cover Tyreek for long periods of time, and it showed. Tyreek topped 100 receiving yards in 6 games during the 2018 season, including a career-high 215 yards against the Rams on Monday Night Football. By the end of the regular season, Hill had set career highs in nearly every receiving category. He finished with 87 receptions for 1,479 yards and 12 touchdowns. This performance earned him another Pro Bowl selection and a spot on the first-team All-Pro, but this time it was as a receiver, not just as a returner. The Chiefs won their division for the 3rd consecutive year, but the big question was, could they finally make some noise in the playoffs? Playoff heartbreak and a big payday. The Chiefs made it past the divisional round for the first time in years, dominating the Colts 31-13. But when they faced the New England Patriots in the AFC Championship game, they came up just short, losing 37-31 in overtime. Tyreek was limited to only 1 reception for 42 yards, as Patriots coach Bill Belichick had effectively shut him down. Despite the heartbreaking loss, 2018 was still an incredible season for Tyreek Hill. That offseason, he earned a massive payday, signing a 3-year, $54 million extension with the Chiefs. For a former 5th-round pick, that was a huge deal. But with that kind of contract came a new level of pressure. He'd have to keep proving he was worth every penny. Tyreek Hill's 2019 season got off to a rough start when he suffered a shoulder injury during the season opener against the Jacksonville Jaguars, sidelining him for the next 4 games. Injuries like that can sometimes derail an entire season, but not for Hill. When he returned in Week 6 against the Houston Texans, he wasted no time getting back to his explosive ways, finishing the game with 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. Tyreek ended the season with 58 receptions for 860 yards and 7 touchdowns, helping the Chiefs capture another division title. But the real magic happened in the playoffs. Kansas City, looking like a team of destiny, made incredible comebacks. They erased a 24-point deficit to the Texans, winning 51-31. Then in the AFC Championship against the Titans, they were down 10-0 before rallying to win 35-24, with Hill contributing 67 yards and 2 touchdowns. But Hill saved his best for last, Super Bowl 54. The Chiefs faced the San Francisco 49ers in a battle of unstoppable offense against stifling defense. After 3 quarters, the Chiefs were trailing 20-10 and in need of a spark. Enter Tyreek Hill. On 3rd and 15, Mahomes connected with Hill for a crucial play that changed the course of the game. The Chiefs went on to score 21 unanswered points, securing their first Super Bowl in 50 years. Tyreek finished the game with 9 receptions for 105 yards in one of the most pivotal plays in Super Bowl history. A dominant 2020 season. After their Super Bowl win, the Chiefs were hungry for more, and it looked like they might just be the NFL's next dynasty. In 2020, Tyreek Hill returned to the first-team All-Pro with 87 receptions for 1,276 yards and a career-high 15 receiving touchdowns. The Chiefs finished the season 14-2, claiming another division title. In the playoffs, the Chiefs were nearly flawless. Tyreek was a standout, catching 8 passes for 110 yards in a 22-17 win over the Cleveland Browns. In the AFC Championship against the Buffalo Bills, Hill had his best playoff performance to date, hauling in 9 receptions for 172 yards as the Chiefs cruised to a 38-24 victory. But when the Super Bowl came around, the Chiefs were faced with an old nemesis, Tom Brady, now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Super Bowl 55 matchup wasn't even close. The Buccaneers' defense suffocated Mahomes, sacking him 3 times and hitting him 10 times. The Chiefs couldn't even score a touchdown, and they ended up losing 31-9. Tyreek had 7 receptions for 73 yards, but the loss left a bitter taste in his mouth. The Super Bowl loss to Tampa Bay stung, but Hill came into the 2021 season with something to prove. His 2021 season saw him hitting new career highs. He caught a remarkable 111 receptions for 1,239 yards and 9 touchdowns. Even in the playoffs, Hill didn't slow down. He put up 57 yards and a touchdown in the wildcard round against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Then, in an unforgettable divisional round game against the Buffalo Bills, Hill had 11 receptions for 150 yards and a touchdown, showcasing his game-breaking ability. But the AFC Championship game was another story. Despite Hill's 78 yards and a touchdown, the Chiefs blew a 21-3 lead and ultimately lost to the Cincinnati Bengals in overtime. At this point in his career, Tyreek had 1 year left on his contract, which he had outperformed and was eager for a new deal. But it quickly became clear to both parties that an extension wasn't going to happen. A perfect fit in Miami. Tyreek made it clear he wanted to stay with his teammates, Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes, but with the Chiefs' salary cap situation, a new contract wasn't in the cards. In a move that shocked the NFL, the Chiefs traded Tyreek Hill to the Miami Dolphins in exchange for a 2022 first-round pick, a second-round pick, 2 fourth-round picks, and a 2023 sixth-round pick. Shortly after the trade, Hill signed a 4-year, $120 million contract extension, making him the highest-paid wide receiver in NFL history at the time. The move to the Dolphins sparked mixed reactions. On one hand, Hill was now part of one of the fastest wide receiver duos ever with Jalen Waddle. On the other hand, his new quarterback was Tua Tagovailoa, who had a very different style of play than Mahomes. Tua was known for his accuracy and quick short passes, while Hill was famous for his ability to burn defenses with deep routes. There were plenty of skeptics wondering how well this pairing would work. As it turned out, those doubts were quickly proven wrong. Tyreek Hill unlocked a new level of play in Tua's game that had never been seen before. Hill's speed allowed Tua to take his game to new heights, and the Dolphins' offense became more explosive as a result. Tua's yards per pass attempt jumped from 6.8 the previous year to 8.9 with Hill in the mix. But it wasn't just Tua who benefited from the move. Tyreek evolved his own game, adjusting to a more short yardage and quick pass style of play. The Dolphins figured out that getting the ball to the fastest player in the league as often as possible was a recipe for success. Hill's ability to make plays both down the field and with short passes allowed him to continue being one of the most dangerous players in the league, and his NFL journey is far from over.